Is how long it's been since Decatur police shot Steve Perkins in front of his home. Now a grand jury has indicted the officer who allegedly pulled the trigger. Officers say they were called to Perkins' home after he pulled a gun on a tow truck driver trying to repossess his truck. A total of 4 officers responded. 3 were fired. 1 was suspended after internal investigations found they violated departmental policy. WFO48's Daquan Lee and Megan Plaka are live in Decatur with the very latest on the investigation, as well as the aftermath and the public reaction. Let's start with Daquan tonight. Daquan, the biggest question here the public may have: will we ever get to see that body camera footage from that fateful night?
No, Liz, we will not. However, District Attorney Scott Anderson has been very clear. The Perkins family will have the opportunity to view that video for themselves if they choose to.
As a result of the facts and evidence presented in this case, the grand jury unanimously returned an indictment against Mac Bailey Marquette, charging him with the crime of murder.
After months of investigations into the shooting of Steve Perkins, a former Decatur police officer is now charged. Morgan County District Attorney Scott Anderson announced Friday morning that Mac Marquette had been arrested for shooting Steve Perkins in his front yard. Law enforcement agencies have denied repeated requests to see body camera video from the night Perkins was. Now his family will get to see it, but Anderson says he's keeping it from the public to avoid tainting the jury pool.
My job is to seek justice and do it the best that I can. And the best way that I can seek justice is to make sure that everybody gets a fair trial, and that that can only happen if we've got the largest jury pool in Morgan County that we can have.
He claims previously released videos created rumors and speculation. It's something he wishes to avoid since the video will be used as evidence at trial.
As a result of posting the door cam footage, you had untruths, half-truths, speculations, innuendos, rumors, and it just goes on, and all those were shared. And so that evidence, while it is still good evidence, is tainted with opinions.
Now, Anderson says Marquette was the only officer indicted because he was the only officer who used their gun. Now, that does not mean that the other officers may not still face charges. Reporting live in Decatur, Daquan Lee, 48, on your side.
All right, peace and blessings, all praises to the Most High. Shout out to my brother Daquan out there in Decatur, Alabama. And that was from January, where this animal, Matt Bailey Marquette, I think that's his name, an officer, took the life of this 39-year-old father, Steve Perkins, in his front yard. In the middle of the night. And I'm going to show you that ring camera footage. But today, this officer has just been denied the attempt to use the stand your ground law. Yep, you heard it right. This officer just tried to use the stand your ground law and get immunity for taking this brother's life in his own yard. Now, if you're familiar with the stand your ground law, that is only implemented when you are in a place that you should rightfully be. Like our brother Perkins, he had an opportunity to stand his ground. Now, what happened that night? This tow truck driver, I think his last name is Combs, attempted to repossess my brother's vehicle. Evidently, he may have been going through some financial problems, missed some payments. But when my brother heard the man hooking up his truck, he walked out of the house with this firearm. Some of the reports in the document said, he brandished the gun, maybe pointed the gun at the tow truck driver. It was like, yo, man, get away from my truck and get out of my yard, right? Now, that may have been his right. Hey, that's his property. Tow truck drivers could be considered stealing. I don't know. That's to be debated. Nevertheless, Combs so hell bent on getting this little tow. What is it, $75, $150, however much they get? He calls the police. He calls the police and tells them that, I tried to get this guy's truck. He brandished the gun, blah, 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 blah. The police, totally against protocol, because police are not to be used in repossession attempts. However, they called the police. The police dispatched people to meet Combs a few yards down. And they devised an elaborate scheme to make sure that this man got his $150 by repossessing the truck. So what happened? The officers claimed that they were, and it was 2 or 3 other officers on the scene. They claimed that they wanted to keep the peace and make sure that nothing happened. However, the officers went ahead of Combs and they set themselves up in various hiding places in Mr. Perkins' yard. Mr. Perkins had no idea that they were law enforcement in his yard. So now the guy comes back and he attempts, with the police in hiding, to take this man's truck. Now, once again, the man comes out again with this firearm. His firearm has a flashlight on it. And he's like, hey, man, didn't I tell you to get away from my truck? It is then when the police run out, and I'm going to show you the video, run out and like, hey, hey, hey. And my man, startled because he doesn't see any police, turns around. And, his flashlight on his gun, goes where he's turning. And then the officer unloads 18 shots in the man, taking his life on the scene. Watch this video and y'all tell me what y'all think about it in the comments. And this is fair use, by the way. Shout out to, again, Dr. Richie and Indisputable for his work and coverage. But I'm using this in fair use for commentary and educational purposes.
Video caught on a neighbor's doorbell camera captures the moment the Perkins family says police fatally shot 39-year-old Steve Perkins. Police, get back! The warning appearing to come immediately before police open fire. The husband and father. The deadly confrontation around 2 a.m. September 29th stemmed from a tow truck driver trying to repossess Perkins' truck. Police say the driver arrived earlier, but left when Perkins flashed a gun, then came back hours later, accompanied by Decatur police.
They started firing before they even got the full first command out of their mouth.
The department states Perkins brandished the weapon towards an officer, causing the officer to fire. His family's attorney says Perkins had no idea it was police in his front yard.
It doesn't matter whether he had a weapon or not. He never was given an opportunity to comply, and if he had a weapon, he was well within his rights to carry a firearm.
All right, so there you see the video footage where the man is clearly walking towards the tow truck driver. The police wait until he passes them, runs around in back of him and say, police, or, put your hands up, whatever. And he's startled, and the next thing you know, 18 bullets. And as Lee Daniels said, that he was well within his rights to carry a firearm. Also, the neighbor, whoever he was, said, look, they started firing even before they got the commands out of his mouth. And the officer or the sheriff released that old blanket statement. Perkins brandished the gun at the officer, causing the officer to fire. I mean, this whole debacle, once again, is very wrong. The police are there to, quote unquote, keep the peace. So if their objection was to keep the peace and make sure that this guy got the tow truck or got the tow truck job, only thing they had to do was accompany the guy to the door. Say, hey, look, my man trying to get the car. He said you pulled out the jank on him. So we're going to make sure that everybody is safe. That is a peacekeeping technique. Why would they hide themselves, lay in wait? And once again, only one officer fired. So the other officers, why didn't the other officers fire? Now, also it said that even Matt Marquette, his view was blocked by the truck. So he couldn't really see. So he just went out on a rampage because we've been seeing this. Police officers also see this. So they think it is a free 1,000 points in Grand Theft Auto. You can just automatically unalive a black man, and then, you're going to walk off into the sunset. However, this guy was indicted finally earlier this year. It took him 13 months. So there you have, I don't know what took so long. They always have these investigations, like that guy was saying, half truths and this, that, and the other. Anybody who can see that video know that that officer was dead wrong. That man had every right to carry his legal firearm in defense of his property, whether it was, trying to be repossessed or not. Nevertheless, the justice system seems to be moving in the right direction. In this case, as Judge Elliott denied just yesterday this officer's attempt at using the stand your ground law as a defense. If he's not granted immunity, stand your ground law. Now, this is an insight on his side of the story, Matt Marquette's side of the story, which we see the side of the story. But just let me play this one last video, which gives you further insight on how he even tried to get this judge recused or removed from the case, because evidently he knew that this judge was going to do the right thing.
Tonight, we learned what former Decatur police officer Mac Marquette says happened on the night of the deadly shooting of Steve Perkins. Marquette is awaiting trial for shooting Perkins outside his home over a car repossession dispute back on September 29th of 2023. We combed through the court documents and in his petition to recuse the presiding judge, Charles Elliott. Here's a look. Let's start with Mac Marquette's petition and motion for a stay in the trial, filed March 7th. The document details Marquette's immunity request, laying out his version of the shooting. And in it, Marquette says on the night of September 29th, 2023, he was called as backup in response to a tow truck driver's call to Decatur police about being threatened with a gun. Marquette says the tow truck driver requested an escort back to Steve Perkins' home to avoid any violent confrontation. Alabama law states that repossession can proceed with or without a warrant, so long as it proceeds without a breach of the peace. It's worth noting that Decatur Police Department has changed their policy on assistance and repossession since this incident. Marquette says he and his officers took various positions around Perkins' home, and when the driver began repossession of the vehicle, Perkins came out of the home with his arm extended and a gun in plain view. Marquette says he saw Perkins, quote, advance toward the tow truck driver and point the gun at the driver. Marquette says he was located behind Perkins' car. Marquette says it was the flashlight on Perkins' weapon illuminating the tow truck driver that made him believe Perkins was taking aim at the driver. Marquette says he reacted to what he saw as a threat by yelling and identifying himself as police, commanding Perkins to drop his weapon. However, ring camera video revealed after which several shots are fired. Marquette, though, says instead of dropping the weapon, Perkins pointed his gun toward Marquette, who says he then felt compelled to fire his gun out of fear for his life and the safety of others. As for the petition for a stay on the trial, meaning a temporary halt on the proceedings, it was denied yesterday. Marquette's next court appearance for the immunity hearing is on March 25th.
Okay, so there you hear his request was denied to recuse the judge, and just yesterday, I think his request for standing your ground was denied also, which means he's going to go to trial. And as you see the age-old narrative, he black man with the gun. I perceived it as a threat, and when I said it, then he turned around to me, and I feared for my life over a repossession. As I stated, they could have easily went, like I said, the tow truck called the police to prevent any violence from happening. How do you prevent that? If you are police, you don't lay in wait and ambush somebody. You go to the door, announce yourself, hey, I'm police. We are with this guy. Sorry. You gotta, he has an order right here. You gotta take it up with the finance, whatever the case may be. But you don't lie in wait and take a brother's life and then try to say that you are standing your ground. So we're going to keep an eye on this case as well. Hopefully justice will be served. Rest in peace to the young brother, Steve Perkins, 39 years old, taken in the very essence of life. And so we pray that, his family will be able to navigate even this process, because it's almost like he's being, the wound is being reopened, and also he's being executed again if this trial doesn't go the way it should go, with that officer serving a long time in prison. But y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. 919-587-7782. Peace and blessings.